So, after the Orlando shooting took place, I decided to bring up my old Facebook account, which had my ex-coworkers on there. See, because all of them are very left-leaning people, so I was curious as to what they had to say on the matter. The first day was pretty much nothing. They didn't really post much of anything, which I thought was weird since when that Christian woman refused those marriage licenses and when those other mass shootings took place that happened to be done by white people, they responded pretty quickly and loudly to those things. But for this event, pretty much nothing. If it wasn't for me watching the news and just going on Facebook, I probably wouldn't have thought anything happened. It wasn't until the next morning that I started seeing a response from them. So I just wanted to cover some of the stuff that I saw them posting, along with some comments that I've been seeing on YouTube videos such as Blair White's video on the subject, and just break them down piece by piece. Feel free to go to Blair White's video and scroll down to look at some of the comments on there. I didn't take screenshots of them because if I had to take a screenshot of every "not all Muslims" or "what about Christians" and "what about guns" comment, then my 500 gigabyte memory would have been gone in a day. Before we get started, I'd just like to say, I like to live by a quote by Socrates, who said, "True knowledge exists in knowing that you know nothing." So I go into every argument and every debate knowing that there's a chance I may be wrong. So if you have something to say or an argument to make about something I'm saying, please feel free to comment below and I'll respond to you as soon as I can. With that being said, let's continue. Our first comment reads, "1 assault rifle and 1 handgun, blame all Muslims. 3 assault rifles and explosive material, strange, he doesn't look like an ISIS." So in other words, why are we focusing on the guy who is Muslim, who did kill a bunch of people and himself claimed to do it in the name of his religion, when we should be focusing on the white guy who didn't kill anybody, who didn't bring up any type of ideology, and just happened to have more weapons? And by the way, this whole idea that we're blaming every single Muslim when we criticize the religion is ridiculous. I've grown up around plenty of Muslims in New York. I know you all aren't the problem. But getting all defensive when we bring it up doesn't help anybody, and all it does is take the focus away from a problem that does exist, which is millions of people who are killing others in the name of your religion, which is what we really need to be focusing on. Not getting all upset every time somebody brings up Islam. The next one reads, "Before we begin spreading the lies of the deadliest mass terrorist shooting in US history, let's not forget all these times white people were killing black people. Don't forget those lynchings, and don't forget slavery. Because nothing says I'm sorry for your loss like, look what all these white people did." I'll admit this was smart. I mean, not even a full 24 hours after a bunch of gay people were killed, you're gonna bring up the bathroom situation, which I myself have mixed feelings on, but, you know, to each their own. He was born in the US, he studied in the US, he worked in the US, he bought an AR-15 made in the US, he killed 50 US residents, but he's an Islamic terrorist? He was born into Islam, he studied Islam, he traveled for Islam, he bought an AR-15 made in the US, he killed 50 US residents in the name of Islam, but he's not an Islamic terrorist? And also he killed 49 US residents because I don't count him as a victim, and he injured 53 others, and he also didn't use an AR-15. There are well over 1 billion Muslims on this planet. If Islam was really about violence, you'd all be dead by now. Stop letting your TV and newspaper tell you who to hate. Well, that's a little optimistic, especially since there's 6 billion other people who are not Muslim, and there's countries that are not majority Muslim that seem to be better equipped. And as for that bottom part, I'm not sure what the news is like in the rest of the country, but here in New York, the news seems to stress that Islam is a religion of peace. So I'm not sure where you're getting that idea that our media is out to get Muslims. 90% of US mass shootings are committed by white people aged 14 through 56. For some reason, I've never once heard a white person called a terrorist. Well, we must watch different news media because I have heard mass shootings be reported as acts of terror. But how many of these white people are doing these things in the name of their religion? I haven't really heard of any. Less than 4% of all mass shootings in America are from Muslims. Pointing out the 4% while ignoring the 96% isn't just dumb, it's bigotry. So every time somebody who's not white goes out and kills a bunch of people, it's racist for us not to bring up all the times that white people killed people? Muslim shooter equals entire religion guilty. Black shooter equals entire race guilty. White shooter equals mentally troubled lone wolf. Again, show me where this is happening, because I don't remember when a black person commits a crime and it shows up on the news that they blame the entire black race. So unless you live in like the 1920s or you're living in a really racist neighborhood, I'm not sure where this is coming from. This is not about religion. Real Muslims do not murder. So this goes right into the comment section, where they say Islam is a religion of peace, the Quran doesn't promote violence, and that Islam is a peaceful and tolerant religion. So let's break this down. I went and took 20 countries that are majority Muslim and 20 countries that are majority Christian, so let's see which one of them seem more tolerant and peaceful, shall we? So, out of about 1 billion Christians, 64.7 million of them feel it's justifiable to put you in prison just for being gay. Out of 814.5 million Muslims, 777 million of them feel it's justifiable to put you in jail and in some cases even kill you just for being gay. So, which religion seems more tolerant and peaceful, because these numbers are confusing? And before you even start, yes, I understand that there's probably plenty of people in these countries who don't agree with the laws. But how many of them are actually fighting out against it? And you also have to understand that when you bring people from these countries where jailing or killing gays is the norm, and you bring them into a country where being gay is not only allowed, but it's even celebrated in some cases, they might take offense to that. And as for there not being anything in the Quran that condones violence, there's just a couple, and these aren't one right after the other, so don't think I'm reading them in order, but these are a couple of scriptures. Fight those who do not believe in Allah or in the last day, and who do not consider unlawful what Allah and His Messenger have made unlawful, and who do not adopt the religion of truth from those who were given the scripture. Fight until they give jizya willingly while they are humbled. And another one is, and when the sacred months have passed, then kill the polytheists wherever you find them, and capture them, and besiege them, and sit and wait for them at every place of ambush. But if they should repent, establish prayer, and give zakah, let them go on their way. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful. You could go on and say that these were taken out of context, but you could pretty much do the same thing for the Bible, can you not? So, when you realize that majority Muslim countries are less tolerant and peaceful than Christian countries, and you realize that there are passages in the Quran that do condone violence, what's your next argument? Gun control. So about 33% of Americans own a gun. That's about 150 million people out of 318 million. And there are around 12,000 gun-related deaths each year, not including suicide. It's about even with the amount of deaths per year caused by cars. Obesity kills 300,000 Americans per year. Smoking kills 450,000 Americans per year. I read aloud as I smoke my cigarette. So are we going to ban cigarettes or control the amount of food Americans consume? But white boy, you yell. Guns are used to kill other people, whereas the amount somebody eats and how much they smoke only affects themselves. Well, what about all of you who advocate for less punishment for drug use? I mean, drug overdoses kill at least 38,000 people per year. Pharmaceutical drugs at least 22,000 per year. And those deaths don't just affect the person using them, it affects their family, their children. Not to mention it adds to those gun-related deaths because people are shooting each other over drugs. So, what else you got? I'm more than willing to discuss more gun control. I mean, I lived in New York pretty much my whole life, so I never owned a gun. So it's not really something I'm gonna miss. But I have yet to hear any proposal that makes actual sense to me, since the majority of gun-related deaths are done by handguns, and yet they always want to talk about the AR-15. And even though you all don't like to talk about it, there have been plenty of times when somebody owning a gun has saved their life. But, you all never want to talk about that because it pretty much goes against your agenda, doesn't it? And I think it's funny that when you feminists and SJWs want to say things like all white people are racist and all men are sexist, that you think these white rednecks, as you think all gun owners are just going to part with their guns. And when the feminists say things like 1 in 5 women are going to get raped, pretty much making every woman think that, oh, every time I walk out of the house there's a good chance I'm going to be frickin' raped, you think that's going to let them let go of their guns too. So let's be real for a minute, huh? And also, it's like you all forget or just ignore that there are plenty of terrorist attacks around the world that don't use guns, they use bombs. And to think that if you really wanted to kill all these people, that he wouldn't have went through the extra work to build a bomb if he couldn't get his hands on a gun, I'm sorry, it's kind of fucking stupid. So, what have we learned today? There are way more tolerant Christians than there are Muslims. And yes, even though you grew up in a majority Christian country where some Christians say really mean things to you, you're not being tossed in a jail cell or being whipped or killed for who you are. And that people who really want to kill somebody are not going to just change their mind because they can't find a gun anywhere. We know it's not all Muslims, but there are at least as many radical Muslims as there are people in America. So stressing the word minority to make it seem like it's a minuscule situation is counterproductive to the issue. As I've said before, if you have anything to add or refute, please do so. And as always, thanks for watching.